You're tuned in to Watch This with Eryk and Brandon, the show where we make a friend watch a movie or TV show that they've never seen before. What do they think about it? Is their opinion the same as ours? That's what we're going to find out. And on today's show, we're going to discuss The Big Short. Now, I've seen the movie, and Eryk just watched it for the first time. However, Eryk has read the book, so he kind of knows what the movie's about. We'll get his reaction of it as a first-time viewer, and my reaction as someone who's seen it before, and we're going to discuss some of our favorite scenes and other movies among that involve money and Wall Street and the stock market and con artists and stuff like that. So we're going to get into it today, and we'll have some fun with it. So a bit of a spoiler alert, we are going to talk about the movie and some of the scenes that happen in it. So if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, and then you can come back and watch us.
Absolutely.
Break it down.
And it is a true story, but it does focus on real people, and maybe you don't know their story. So, yeah, like we said, some cool things happen. You know, if you don't want it to be spoiled, go watch it and then come back to us here.
So let's get into the background a little bit. It's based on a 2010 book, The Big Short, Inside the Doomsday Machine, and Michael Lewis wrote the book. And the book and the movie is about the financial crisis in 2007 and 8 that was caused by the housing market bubble in the United States.
Right. And the book is fantastic. Like you said, I read the book first, and it's amazing that Michael Lewis has written so many nonfiction books that have been turned into very successful movies, like dramatized movies. And he's a very good writer. So I enjoyed the book, so I was happy to finally watch the movie.
So did you think the book was similar to the movie, like pretty close, pretty accurate?
Yeah, because it follows the different guys. Mm-hmm. You know, it bounces between Michael Burry and all these guys and follows them around and explains exactly what they did. And it gets into a lot more detail.
Yeah, a lot more detail, I was going to say.
Michael Lewis was a finance guy at one point in his life, so he really gets into detail with that stuff. Good book.
So the movie was directed by Adam McKay, and the screenplay was written by McKay and Charles Randolph, and it stars Christian Bale. He plays Michael Burry, the main character, who initially discovers the bubble.
It's kind of the first one.
Yeah. Steve Carell is Mark Baum, Ryan Gosling is Jared Vennett, and Brad Pitt plays Ben Rickert. Now, the movie was released December 2015. It was made on a $50 million budget, and it made $133 million at the box office. So it was a success.
Yeah, very successful movie, especially for a movie about banking, finance,
and
the
money,
stock market.
Yeah.
It did
I think
very,
the cast
well.
probably had a lot to
That's
do with
probably
it.
true.
There's some big names in there.
Absolutely.
And it won the Oscar for Best Screenplay. It was nominated for Best Picture, Director, Film Editing, and Supporting Actor for Christian Bale. And Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 88% rating, 7.8 out of 10 from IMDb users as well. So
yes, very good ratings, especially from the critics there, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So, we usually do our prediction at this point, but as I said, I read the book before.
What it was about, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I knew exactly what happened. So here's my reaction to the movie. I mean, one of the most creative movies I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And that's, saying a lot. And like I said, the book is a nonfiction book. And even though it does follow the storyline of all these guys and everything, I mean, it's a pretty, straightforward account of exactly what happened.
Yeah.
A documentary account of what happened to all these guys.
A little bit of Hollywood it up a little bit.
Yeah, in the movie, it certainly is. And so they took this book, which could be dry to some people, right, talking about finance and everything, and they made it very, very interesting and very, very creative. And it really is incredible, as I said, that Michael Lewis, I mean, his writing is so interesting and so good that you can make a good Hollywood movie out of a nonfiction story. I mean, Moneyball is another example. The Blind Side is another example. So he's a fantastic writer. Now, Adam McKay, I think, is one of the best directors in Hollywood today. Now, some people might not agree because he mostly does comedies, and I guess, comedy isn't always lumped in there with, the high art of movie making or whatever. But, I mean, this guy's really, really good. And, I mean, it shows because there were some very interesting choices made in this movie. For example, when they come to a topic of discussion that some people might not understand, right? And they're throwing around a lot of financial jargon and all this kind of stuff.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. The way they explain it is so blunt, but so funny and brilliant as far as I'm concerned. Like, and now to explain, here's Margot Robbie in a bathtub.
Yeah, they've got cameos by different actors.
Yeah, here's Anthony Bourdain in a kitchen or whatever, and really, really interesting. I love, and here's economist Richard Thaler and Selena Gomez at a poker poker table.
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoever thought of that? I mean, just absolutely brilliant. So that's an interesting choice. I also love the use of music. Obviously, all the songs are kind of money based because the movie is, a money movie. Mm-hmm. And instead of just playing a song in the background, they show the music videos. Yeah. These rap songs where they're throwing money around,
making it rain.
Yeah, they cut the music video into the movie, which I think is a really funny and interesting way to use music in a movie. They're talking about money and in the movie and in these songs, and so connect the two.
Yeah.
And just, who would have thought of that?
Yeah.
It works very, very well. Also, cutting in news clips of real people, let's say, in between some of the scenes, the dramatized scenes, was a very interesting choice as well, because at the end of the day, these guys were kind of bloodthirsty business types, trying to out to make money. But at the end of the day, what they were doing, if they were going to be successful, it was going to affect millions of people.
Yeah, it was going to other people were going to suffer.
That was a great way of, humanizing the whole thing. You see these guys and they're trying to make all this money and everything. There was real people who had consequences from what they were doing. So very interesting way of showing that. I like the use of handheld cameras, which was pretty much most of the movie was shot on handheld cameras, which was kind of interesting because, instead of being like a Hollywooded, like typical, here's one person and here's the next person, it was like you were a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
They would go here to here and they'd zoom in on this and then, you know what I mean? It made it feel like you were in the room with these guys as opposed to this dramatized scene playing out.
It's interesting that you mentioned the handheld cameras because you watch other movies and sometimes it's shaky and it doesn't look good, but these, it was steady. Like you couldn't almost couldn't tell that it was a handheld.
Very clearly had very talented camera operators working on this movie because yes, it can look very bad, but then you see a show like The Office or something where which Steve Carell is also in, by the way, and it does work. And some of the shots in there, if you really like break it down, believe it or not, just on a sitcom like The Office, some of the shots they get in there are very impressive because when you consider that it's handheld and everything, I mean, and so that was the same with this movie. I mean, the fact that most of the movie was shot this way, first of all, like I said, puts you in the room with these guys as opposed to just watching actors act. It almost feels like these guys are just doing what they're doing and you're in the room with them.
Yeah, we're just watching.
So that was a great choice as well. And fantastic performances. I mean, Christian Bale, like we said, he was nominated for an Oscar and I think deserved to be.
Played such an awkward guy.
Yes, a very idiosyncratic, very awkward person and pulled it off, I think. I mean, it could have been bad, I think, in a lesser actor's hands because it was so awkward. I think another actor might have taken it too far over the top or been like too awkward or whatever, but I think he just absolutely nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling were hilarious.
Yeah,
just
they were great.
So funny. And that's another thing about this movie too, because Adam McKay, this great comedy director, directed it. Not only do you get his skill and vision with all these things I've mentioned, but you also get an incredible amount of humor,
comic relief.
Yeah, he's known because he was a former SNL guy, like SNL writer and everything. So like this is a very funny guy, and on some of his comedy movies, like he throws out lines to the actors while they're shooting, and like sometimes those lines end up being in the movie because they're the funniest lines, right? And they crack everybody up. I mean, he's just that kind of a guy. He's just so quick and witty and brilliant. So I imagine a lot of the lines and a lot of the things that were said, the funny moments, were probably like thrown out by him on the day of shooting, and really, really cool. So I mean, I love the movie. You know, I thought the book was great when I read it, even though it is, it can be a little dry or whatever. I'm not a financial stock market expert, so I was learning a lot of the stuff as I was reading it, but a very interesting time in history, and I mean, this movie was just so creative and so great. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it.
All right, and so now we're going to get my reaction, and I'm going to start off by saying that I in no way understand Wall Street and finances or investing in the stock market, but watching the movie gives you a little bit of a glimpse of what it's like, really. They've got a way of simplifying that for you. Right. And there were still some things that were a little bit confusing in it. I mean, they did lay it out pretty good, but at the end of the day, there were still some things that you don't understand fully.
Yeah. And that's why it was so effective to use Margot Robbie and these people to explain it.
Yeah,
for
and you mentioned
know.
the cameos, and the fact that they have different people doing that, it makes it more fun. Kind of gives you a brief understanding of what's going on. I like how they broke the movie up into 3 different stories. You've got Michael Burry, Mark Baum and his team, and then the 2 young guys, Charlie Geller and Jamie Shipley. All the characters, even though they were all kind of Wall Street hustlers, and with the exception of the 2 young guys, they were really likable characters.
Yeah.
They weren't, they weren't out to ruin people's lives. They just caught on to something that nobody else did, and they took advantage of it. Right?
That's true.
And they weren't out there to break anybody's bank account.
Yeah.
And they pulled it off. When you think about it, it wasn't that long ago too. And
No,
it really
it was only
opens your
11
eyes,
years ago.
and it helps you understand how and why the market's collapsed. Entertaining movie. There was some comedy to it, and overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, fantastic movie, and I'm glad you made me watch this one because I've been waiting a long time to watch it. So this movie is about money. It's about Wall Street and all that kind of stuff, the stock market, and there's been so many incredible movies about money over the years. So I thought we'd take a moment here and just talk about some of our favorites.
Let's break some down.
So this could be, movies about finance, about the stock market, or movies about a bank heist, or movies about
con
hustlers,
artists,
things like that. So any movie kind of about money, where money is the central theme. So why don't you start off, give us one.
So the first one that comes to mind for me was Boiler Room. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
No.
It's about a stockbroker. He's a young guy, small-time brokerage firm, and eventually helps the FBI take down this employer's firm because they're doing all kinds of illegal stuff. Like they're just selling penny stocks that don't exist, and it's just it's really shows you what it's like inside one of the. It's not necessarily Wall Street, but it was inside a firm that deals with money and sells fake stocks to people. It's more like a pyramid scheme almost. So that was one that really stood out to me. Casey Affleck is in it, I think. Casey and Ben Affleck are both in it, actually. I think
so. Fairly recent, maybe in the last 20 years.
2000. I don't know. I don't know what year it was. I can't remember.
Within the last 20 years. Probably.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
So,
no, I've never seen that one.
That's a good one.
Moneyball, another Michael Lewis book that was adapted into a movie. I mean, that is a very good one, and that's about sports finances and how the Oakland Athletics, with the lowest budget in Major League Baseball, were able to put together a winning lineup that actually won 23 games in a row at one point, and made it to the playoffs, where they lost to the team with the biggest budget in Major League Baseball, the New York Yankees. So, I mean, that's a fascinating book as well, and a very good dramatization of that book. So that's one of my choices.
All right, I picked Catch Me If You Can, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, yeah.
Frank Abagnale Jr.
One of my favorites.
Forged millions of dollars worth of checks. He posed as a Pan Am pilot, as a doctor and a lawyer, all before he was 19 years old.
Yeah, and a true story.
Yeah, and it's a true story. Tom Hanks is in that. Just one of the best cat and mouse kind of movies, I think. And they're dealing with money, and he's forging these checks, and it's just I thought that one was a perfect description.
You know what's funny? If that movie wasn't a true story, it would be too unbelievable, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it would be
how does that happen?
Like, what the hell? This stupid Hollywooded movie and all that, but it actually happened. Really incredible. I mean, illegal, but incredible. How about some more stock market movies? Movies like The Wolf of Wall Street and Wall Street from 1987, I believe.
That's with Michael Douglas, wasn't it?
Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen. And a few others. Yeah, a very good one. The classic Greed is Good.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. I saw Wolf of Wall Street, though.
It's pretty classic, and I think you'd probably enjoy it, especially if you enjoyed The Big Short. I mean, I think you would enjoy Wall Street and The Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, this is one we've both seen. Martin Scorsese and all those great performances from everybody. So, I mean, Leo is just incredible in that one. So that's
funny
one
he
of
comes
my
up
favorites.
again, and
absolutely.
He's one of the best actors as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
I've got Molly's Game. Now, this is a newer one. Jessica Chastain is in it, and it's the true story of Molly Bloom. She was an Olympic skier. She hosted these high-stakes poker games in New York City, I think, and she did that for 10 years, and then she was arrested by the FBI, and the players included, like, professional athletes and Hollywood royalty, business titans. The Russian mob got involved with it. So just another one that deals with money and almost scamming and conning to get your way to the top. Sort of thing that she does. Yeah.
Well, that's another interesting one that maybe we'll have to watch at some point.
I think you would like that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Really good.
The Sting, That's going back to the early 70s, I believe. That's Paul Newman, Robert Redford. They're both con artists, and they're both going to pull off this massive job. And really, really cool, an all-time classic. It takes place in the 1930s, and a very interesting movie. And yeah, maybe one I'll have to make you watch at some point. Do you have another one?
Yeah, one more. The Founder with Michael Keaton. It's the story of the founding of McDonald's. Highlights, how they seized the opportunity.
Ray Kroc, is that who he plays?
Ray Kroc. And, he does his research, he builds relationships in it, and tells a story about how he turned this small-town hamburger joint into a billion-dollar business. So that one came to mind because of money again.
I have one more as well, The Color of Money, from the mid-'80s, 1986, I believe. It's Paul Newman again. He reprises his character from The Hustler, Fast Eddie, and so he was like a pool hustler, and he takes Tom Cruise, who is a young upstart pool player, under his wing, and they go and try to make as much money as possible.
People playing pool.
Yeah, exactly. Hustling pool, and that's a classic from the mid-'80s as well. So, returning to The Big Short, Brandon, what are some of your favorite scenes?
Well, first off, when Jared Bennett is proposing his plan to the team of guys, I think that was hilarious. Like to Mark Baum and those guys. Yeah. He's got the Jenga set up. He's telling his assistant to get out of the way.
That's right. You're standing too close.
Yeah. And then he's got his Asian mathematician there who he says, can't speak English. Yeah. And then the guy turns the camera, is like, I can speak English. Yeah. Like just the way they did that. I thought that was hilarious.
I love the line in that scene where he points to his quant, as he calls him, and he says, do you notice anything different about this guy? And you hear Steve Carell in the background. That's very racist. But just such a funny scene. That might be my favorite scene as well. Just throwing another one out there. Mark Baum in Anger Management. Early on in the movie,
he walks in,
where he busts in late,
commandeers the whole meeting.
Yeah, exactly. He's on his phone yelling, and then immediately cuts somebody off and starts telling his story, and just absolutely hilarious.
Like, we've talked about this, and she's telling him he can't do it. I like when Christian Bale Michael Burry, when he goes to the bank and he tells them that he wants to bet against all the mortgages, and they're just like, they're dumbfounded, and they're like, what's this guy talking about? The reaction from the bankers is great. It's like they'd be taking candy from a baby, but little do they know. So that was just a good scene, because he goes in there and he's just like, this is what I want, and this is what I want to
buy credit default swaps on subprime mortgage loans. Oh, you do?
Yeah, just the reaction.
Nobody takes a short on subprime mortgage. Like, what the hell are you doing?
We'll take your money. Yeah.
$100 million? Yeah, sure.
Why not?
And oh my God! And then the frantic phone calls that he gets from them later on,
the emails light
when
up
things
and
starts hitting the fan and everything. Oh, just hilarious. What about Baum's meeting with the CDO manager in Vegas when he's sitting at the table with that guy, and all of his team are watching him?
Exactly what they're doing.
Exactly what's happening, and he sees the writing on the wall. That's maybe the most important scene in the movie, and a very, very good one. Very well acted scene from everybody in that one. Do you have another one?
Yeah, one more. When Mark Baum is doing the speech, I think it's the guy from the Bear Corporation.
Oh, yes. Bear Stearns.
And the guy's saying that he's going to buy stock and he'll continue to buy stock into it. And then slowly but surely, the stock starts to drop and drop and drop.
His team is monitoring it in the crowd while they're
and
up
everybody's
there.
got their Blackberries and they're all watching it and they're like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, Mark Baum just goes, boom. And that's it. And then that was kind of like
story as well.
the wrapped up the whole story, and that was kind of the end of the movie there.
I have one more as well. When Baum's team goes down to Florida and meets with the mortgage brokers.
Oh, you got a boat.
Oh, you got a boat. Yeah, no, that was absolutely hilarious. And
these cocky guys,
exactly.
They think they're running the show. They got all this money, and then
And that Florida sequence is very important, I think, as well, because not only do you meet those guys and see how slimy some of the people were in this business and all the illegal and crappy stuff they were doing, but then they go to that house, and the guy is like, has my landlord not been paying? And again,
it really opens your eyes,
shows you the humanity of it, which is
the alligator
one thing.
in the pool in the backyard.
Exactly. And the movie does a very good job of balancing the comedy and the, kind of bloodthirstiness of the whole Wall Street thing.
And the seriousness of the situation.
And the humanity. And it does that very, very well. So who's your favorite character?
Well, I've got 3.
Okay.
Well, 4 actually. So Steve Carell, number 1, Mark Baum. I thought he was probably the best one in the whole movie.
Okay.
Just the way that he pulls off. I mean, we know Steve Carell's a funny guy,
yes.
right? And this was a drama role for him, and he did it flawlessly. I think
Still very funny.
Yeah.
Has to play angry. Has to play like sarcastic.
Yeah.
Has to play very sad and emotional.
Yeah.
At one
when his
point
brother died, and yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of range in one role, and he does it very, very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good choice.
And I like. Oh, sorry. Do you want to go?
Well, sure. I have Mark Baum, but also I have Ryan Gosling as Jared Bennett.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite character.
And the narrator, essentially, of the story, right?
Basically,
he told the story.
Tells the story and kind of ties everything together. Really, really funny performance.
Yeah.
I was not expecting like an all-time great comedy performance in this movie, especially not from Ryan Gosling. I thought maybe Steve Carell or somebody would, but. Yeah, just hilarious and such a great character.
The other 2 are the young guys, Charlie Geller and Jamie Shipley. Not necessarily favorite characters. I do like just how they were these 2 young guys.
Yeah.
They had some money. They invested, and then they ended up calling in the services of Brad Pitt.
Yep.
And
Ben Rickard.
And they were kind of almost like losers, right? But they weren't in a way.
From wealthy backgrounds, went to big universities, and
they didn't really. I don't know, come across as these guys that would know what they're doing with money, and that's why I guess they brought in Brad Pitt to help them out.
They almost don't have that like shark smelling blood in the water kind of
like
attitude that some of these other guys.
It seemed, I guess.
And they were just trying to make a buck, and start their like garage band sort of, company.
They started with $30 million. I mean, they had money, so
they clearly had a good amount of money,
but they had some sense of what they were doing.
But then not enough for Wall Street.
Yeah,
remember
they go down into that meeting, and that guy's a total jerk to them. Yeah, you kind of feel bad for them.
Yeah, some great characters in this, and all real, which is pretty amazing. Is it woke?
Is it woke?
Could this movie be released as is in 2019? Well, it was released 4 years ago.
Yeah, so not that long ago.
I think it could be. I mean, like I said, and one of the things we've mentioned a few times is they really do bring everything back to the humanity at the end of the day. Because what these guys are doing could be seen as very slimy, and and Ryan Gosling's character, Jared Bennett, kind of has that one speech at the end, like, hey, you can hate me if you want, and whatever. And
after he signs his $47 million check that he's got there. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, you could say that, what these guys were doing was slimy and very selfish and at the expense of a lot of people. But they do make sure they show the human side of things, and that, millions of people lost their homes and jobs when that crash happened. And I think they do a good job of showing that. So I think, is it woke? I mean, not really. It doesn't really like preach at all.
There's nothing that's wrong. I mean, like, that's a right word we use. I don't know, not wrong, but like, I agree.
Yep. So next week's episode, this is going to be a fun one. It's my choice. And I tried thinking, what is the movie in my collection that Brandon would never think to watch, never go out of his way to watch, and I found it.
Yeah, he did.
Singing in the Rain.
Singing in the Rain, a musical. And
that's right.
One of those movies that I've heard of it, obviously.
Sure.
The songs from it, Good Morning, and Singing in the Rain. I mean,
a few of them.
Yeah, so, and this is not a movie that I would watch.
Never.
Ever. So we're going to watch that and see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's a great one. It's an absolute great one. Critics absolutely love it, so we'll see if Brandon agrees with the critics. That is next week on Watch This. For Brandon, Shelby, Lucas, and Joe, I'm Eryk. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.